All right, Butler. Go ahead and I guess maybe just kind of run down your history with this film, not the franchise, but this film in general, specifically, in terms of the first time you saw it.
I probably saw this movie when I was 13 or 14. I grew up watching Aliens, but that was more of an action movie. So I think it's a little easier for a kid to watch. Like there's only a couple scenes where my mom was like, you can't watch this scene, and it's just faster. So it was more interesting to me. I think my parents realized I probably wouldn't be able to watch it when I was younger. I'd probably have turned it off or walked away anyway. But yeah, the first time I saw it, I was really into it. It is a little slower. What's weird is it seems slower to me now than it did when I watched it when I was younger. And that just might be because movies nowadays are a lot faster paced, even from when I was watching it, as a kid in the late 90s, early 2000s or whatever. But I really do like this. It's so totally different from Aliens. It's such its own thing in terms of like its tone. I mean, obviously the style and the way the future works is still pretty similar, but I always dug it in that it's such an early film in terms of sci-fi effects and stuff like that. And I think so much of it still holds up. And I just really like the fact that it's a movie that doesn't have a ton of dialogue, but still keeps you kind of watching every scene, which I always really liked.
Yeah, my one of my first notes was I wonder if the movie's slow pace during the setting would play well for modern audiences. So somebody who's never seen this film before, would they appreciate that? Would they appreciate I wonder if somebody is watching it going, when's the alien coming? When's the alien coming? Or if somebody's watching it going, is unsettled and nervous and worried and, you know what I mean? Like what's happening? Like, I wonder if this would play well for a modern audience. I don't necessarily, I don't know if I know the answer to that. I don't know what you think about that, but that was one of my thoughts when I was watching it.
Yeah, I don't know. The tone and the setting is so unique and so interesting. But like you said, it's so much slower than most films and stuff that I really don't know. But I think like we'll get into it, 80 movies from now. But I'm pretty sure I remember Prometheus starting very similarly with a very slow pace and kind of ratcheting up the tension and the horror as the film goes on. And that film made a ton of money. So I don't know.
I think with this film, you're dealing with, this is the style of filmmaking that's coming from the 70s. So you're dealing with that. It's not necessarily anything new. So I think audiences are already used to kind of sitting down, settling in and kind of letting the movie come to you kind of thing and kind of like getting into it. So I think it's just a byproduct of the time. I think I like the pace. I think it adds to it. It's because we know we're watching it and we know what's going to happen. We know, what happens to Kane. Like we know what's coming, but I wonder like audiences back then, like I wonder what the initial reaction was when this movie's on and they're just kind of sitting there and like waiting, like, oh my God, this thing's on his face was going to happen. Like, I just wonder, like, it wasn't such a, cause we'll get to the chest bursting scene, but I'm wondering if that scene hit them so strong that's why that word of mouth starts happening. Oh, you got to see this scene, like that kind of thing. Like I always wonder, like those initial reactions to movies back then, like with Jaws and obviously films that, we already know what happens. It's always fascinating I wish I could go back and kind of see that in happening as it goes, you know, in action. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't know. That's just maybe my 2 cents.
Yeah. Like I think we've talked about it before. We were lucky enough to live in the era where we both saw Jurassic Park in theaters. And like how that affects audiences and stuff like that. And I know that, you're a little older than me. So you got to experience Indiana Jones, in theaters and how people kind of reacted to that and stuff like that. Maybe not Raiders. I don't know if you're old enough to have seen Raiders.
So I think my Indiana Jones, and I think I've told you this, is I watched Temple of Doom at home. And I remember like I loved it. And I was like, and then my father was like, oh, they made another one. I was like, what? Like, so I didn't know, but I did see Last Crusade in the theater and that was awesome. So yeah, so I was just like, I was psyched for that. I mean, I remember seeing Back to the Future 2 in the theater, and then like in the credits, the trailer for the third one pops on. You're just like, oh yeah, it's coming. Like, so because back then you don't have what you have now, where everything's coming. So
I think that would still psych people up though to have it attached to the movie, because you still don't. Maybe some Avengers teasers, but you still don't really get that
Well, it's good when they hide it and you don't know. Like, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good when the payoff is worth it. When they're bad mid-credit scenes, or when they're just kind of like, who cares? Like when like Howard the Duck shows up at the end of one of the Guardians ones, you're just like, all right, and so. Yeah, that's definitely. But back to this film.
Well, before we go, like, are you going to say what's your history with Alien? Because, like I said, you're a little older, so I don't know when you watched it originally and what it was like. I never would have back then.
So I definitely watched Aliens first. I'm not as big of a horror guy as you are, so I don't necessarily. When I first started watching films, I wasn't like gobbling up all the horror movies I could.
Well, this was more sci-fi. This is before I was even.
But to me, after watching Aliens, to me, Alien was more horror than it was action. Like you said, Alien is action. So, but I saw Aliens, and I know I went back and watched this one. I've probably maybe seen it a handful of times. Not, this is probably maybe the second, maybe third time I've seen it, in its entirety here. Like, usually it's bits and pieces. Yeah, no, and it's not something I'll just pop on and watch. Like I'll always watch the Indiana Jones ones from start to finish. Aliens is not a franchise that I really always go back and revisit. So
I just want to say it's not one that I these two are exceptions. I'm not going around watching Alien Resurrection over and over.
No, but I mean, there's still stuff in Alien Resurrection I like, and I know you don't. You're not a big Alien guy. There's one or two
things in all of them that I like.
I think with the Alien Resurrection, I'm hoping and I think that you're going to find more stuff now that you like, maybe you didn't back then, that you're going to appreciate.
I hope so. I've only seen that one time all the way through.
That's why I'm thinking
everything else I've only seen bits and pieces on TV. I only saw it right when it came out. So.
Right.
Well, right when it came out, I think I just rented it. So not even in theaters.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and then obviously when the new ones come out, I watch them, but I haven't gone back to Covenant. I haven't gone back to Prometheus or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to rewatch those again for this lead up. But one of the things I wanted to get to, I kind of want to talk about Ash right off the bat with you.
Okay.
For those who don't know, or for those who do know, obviously the Alien franchise, each movie has a android in it. My question to you is, this is supposed to be a big reveal that he was a robot or an android or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like, no, yeah. So, but in subsequent films, they're played differently, like Bishop in the Aliens, and then Call, and then David. They're all, well, maybe not Call, but David. There's some element of
Ash in all of them.
I'm making up a term here. There's some element of roboticism to them, like the way they talk, the way they speak. But with Ash, there's not. He's quick tempered. He's you know what I mean. Like he's got more emotion. Me of
David a little bit, because David he always tried to hold it in, but I feel like David had this anger deep inside of him throughout the whole movie. He just was better at keeping it down.
And we'll get to David later on, because David starts to becoming more of a lead in the movies. Like, it's like his story at some point. And I mean, like Ripley's basically the center of all of these, except with but as they go on, she's no longer. But with Ash here, like I'm curious if just what you thought of Ian Holmes, the way he played it. Do you think that they were basically just hide it until the end and then we'll let him know? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think was the thought process into how Ash is being played here?
It's so different watching it now. This is the first time I probably watched Alien, at least in its entirety, since Prometheus and Covenant. And watching it now, there's so many hints of like even story wise, and we can get into that, but also just hints that he's an android in his mannerisms, in his obsession, his quiet obsession with the creature, and the little things he says to be like, well, we don't want to be hasty, or you could hurt him, or like there's all these different mannerisms that I really like that really hint at him being an android the second time around. And you don't really get that. And there's also a scene in the director's cut, which I don't know if it's in the theatrical, because I don't remember it when I watched it when I was a kid, where he's watching from the big port glass and he gets really frustrated that the camera goes out. Was that in your cut?
No, it was not.
Like, fuck. And he hobbles over to another computer. Because I really like that. And that was the first time I really noticed that. And I was like, ooh, I like that. He gets really frustrated that the camera cuts out of the alien ship. And he goes, I got to get your feedback. I can't. I'm losing. Hold on.
Wait a minute. Actually, I think it is because Ripley and him are in the same console area.
He goes to that console. Yeah. But at first he's in front of the big port.
Maybe.
I think part of it is, but not his little temper tantrum, which I thought was interesting.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, I like the way it's portrayed. I like that shock value is there. Although you don't set up that there are androids in that world, but it's the future. So everybody probably, as soon as he popped up, they were like, oh, not like, oh. But again, that's another thing. Like I would have loved to have seen the theater's reaction to that. Like when
when the stuff starts coming down his forehead, like when the whatever it was, his
milk, his blood,
yeah.
Or when he hits him with the fire extinguisher and he splits in half.
Yeah, yes, which is a good cut. Like when he's hitting him and it cuts right to it and he takes his head off. It's actually a good cut when they do that. He's drinking his lubricant at some point, right? Because he has a big glass and it's you're thinking it's milk, but
I think he's lubing up, or his food, whatever. Although Bishop can eat food and aliens, but yeah.
Well, he's the next generation, so of course. But I'm curious, like they never knew, but like obviously he was just drinking it. What what if they accidentally drank his his lubricant?
Maybe he keeps that in the medical room. He does eat. He's eating cereal with them during the.
Oh, you're right. He does.
The big meal that they have, so he is faking it.
Yeah. So maybe he can do it just for. Yeah. Okay. That makes a little sense there. Is there anyone on the the characters, not the actors, the characters that you did not like, or you're not a fan of? I already know who you're gonna say, but were you not a fan of?
Of course, I don't think anybody likes Lambert.
Are they not supposed to like Lambert, or is that just the way she's portrayed?
I mean, you watch the theatrical version, so they do hint at the Dallas Lambert Ripley kind of.
It's there, but
Dallas
it's not overt.
It's not overt, which I guess they cut.
It's not overt. Well, there was going to be a sex scene between Dallas and Ripley, but they cut it. Right. There was the idea that
there was like a full argument as well, right? And they cut the full argument.
There's like a triangle thing that happens there between them.
Hey guys, Mike Butler here from Forgotten Cinema. Thank you so much for checking out this clip from our Alien Lead-Up series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more clips from that series, it should be around here right now. And other clips from our channel should be down here that the YouTube algorithm is recommending you watch. If you want to support our show, our Patreon link is down below where we have the full episodes for our Alien Lead-Up series leading up to our now showing review discussion for Alien Romulus. So check that out. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.